Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us for another Salesforce Ben LinkedIn Live, this time in collaboration with Clicked and some special guests. And today we're going to be talking about how you can launch your entry-level Salesforce career with Data Cloud. So, as I'm sure we all know by now, the Salesforce job market is not in the greatest state. I mean, it depends what kind of role you're at and what kind of seniority. But there has been a big saturation of the job market over the last few years. But of course, there's always new areas and always new niches to explore to help you get that edge over other job seekers. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. So we've got a podcast style session for you today with some special guests, and I'm just going to go through them one by one now. So we have Jeff Sample, CEO of Clicked. Hey, Jeff. So Clicked is dedicated to giving everyone access to career experiences and opportunities on demand via their learning platform. And they've built up a really great reputation in the Salesforce ecosystem, landing people entry-level roles. And then we have Ian Gotts, CEO of Elements.Cloud, a Salesforce ISV that specializes in integrating business outcomes, changes, and metadata insights to unlock more value from Salesforce. And finally, last but not least, we have Mo from Cognizant, who is a senior director at Cognizant, one of the leading global Salesforce consultancies. So welcome, guys. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks for having us, Ben.
So to kick off, let's speak a bit about the Salesforce job market. So, I mean, I think kind of everyone, maybe not everyone, but, it's kind of understood now that, Salesforce there was always a lack of talent. And Salesforce came out with Trailhead to try and democratize learning in Salesforce, which, really did its job. And then kind of COVID happened, the COVID boom happened, there still wasn't enough people, and suddenly a huge amount of people rushed into the Salesforce ecosystem because I think it kind of words got out that there weren't enough people there, and there were all these resources then that people could kind of learn Salesforce and get in. But now things have changed a little bit. So Jeff, give us your take on what you're seeing from your kind of Click, your learners on the platform.
For sure. And I think that the timing is pretty interesting because when you think about when we got introduced and started doing the collaboration with Salesforce with our sponsored programs, it was around April of 22, when a flood of these people with certificates were starting to enter the job market. And what unequivocally Salesforce was hearing is these people aren't quite prepared, right? They need some hands-on experience. They need some core business consulting skills or even some business skills just coming in to be able to really equip themselves and be ready for entry-level careers. So we kind of followed that path, but that saturation kind of proceeded, right? So while we closed the gap on the experience side, not only did that saturation continue to evolve with people still hearing that message and seeing those success stories, that we got to kind of that saturated job market. And I think for a lot of our entry-level career people who are coming in on Salesforce, this follows a very similar patterns in other entry-level job markets, right? The entry-level job market in just general workforce right now is pretty tricky in general. And I think what you see, Ben, what we also see at the same side is, and what we talk with, with partners like Mo, is getting into some of these niche roles and not thinking about what you've heard in the past, but what you see is going to happen in the future can really start to help you build this persona and this niche roles and skills that can really enable you to enter the job market. And what we hear unequivocally is data cloud, industry-specific certifications, AI, all those things, as well as core business skills. A lot of Trailhead is working solo player, right, Ben? And work is the multiplayer game, right? So how do we create some of those multiplayer skills? And it's some of the stuff that we've really been, trying to help with, but where the job market is really kind of catering towards those hard skills and then some of those soft skills that are really important.
Yeah, definitely. Nicely summed up. I mean, it's something we've talked about a lot for a few years now. Even Salesforce professionals who are in Salesforce careers might want to look at specializing within Salesforce so that their skills don't get too commoditized and they can focus on the direction where the Salesforce platform is going, which is increasingly verticalized specializations, as you said, some of these trends like data cloud and AI. So yeah, thanks, Jeff, and let's get into it. So Ian, first question to you. You've been in the Salesforce ecosystem for a long time. How long is it?
2001, I think, is when we first started. When it was a very different world. It literally was entry level. Anyone could do anything. The world now is it's an enterprise application, so it's a very different world now.
Yeah, and How do you see Salesforce's entrance into the CDP market, which is Data Cloud? And maybe explain very briefly what Data Cloud is, if you wouldn't mind.
Well, okay. First of all, Data Cloud is clearly it's a new product, but I think it's a profound shift for Salesforce. It in a couple of ways. Data Cloud is enabling you to pull data from external systems, then aggregate that data, rationalize it, and then make it visible inside your core Salesforce system using clicks, not code. So I think they've done some really clever things in terms of exposing that data using metadata in a familiar format. So the reason it's quite profound is, first of all, it's the first time Salesforce is reaching outside sort of core sales data. So it's now a cross-collaborative product and a cross-collaborative project. And as Jeff said, it's now a team sport. It's not an individual sport. That's the first thing that's different. The second thing is Data Cloud implementations will punish you if you don't have a rigorous enterprise implementation strategy. You can't go, oh, we had a go at this, didn't quite work, make a change, didn't quite work. Data Cloud doesn't work like that. You've got to get it right. So the emphasis is on planning rather than just pure implementation. And the third thing, which is really interesting, is it's consumption-based pricing. So if you don't get it right, then Salesforce is not going to get paid. So therefore, there's a huge emphasis on them actually making sure that we genuinely are all successful. But consumption pricing also works the other way, which is it's affordable. You spend as much as you want to spend. So I think it's a profound shift, not just for Salesforce, but for the ecosystem in terms of the skills we need. It's almost as big as the feeling of going from on-prem to cloud. There's cloud to consumption pricing with an emphasis on an enterprise implementation approach. And Salesforce has got to do this. Salesforce is an enterprise player now. AI needs good data. It needs to be connected. So even though it's a massive bet they're making, they recognize they need to take that step. And we all need to make sure we're skilled up to support them as they make that step into the new world.
Yeah, no, I think it's a very logical step because, I mean, I think Salesforce kind of painted core Salesforce, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud as the system where you could just put any information into over the, and create that customer 360. But actually, you can't do that. You can't put unlimited amounts of information into your CRM. It would just get too messy. And I think they've, I'm sure they did this on purpose, but obviously they've recently done Einstein 1. They've relaunched their platform as Einstein 1, which mainly includes CRM plus Data Cloud plus AI. And of course, if anyone's been kind of following along with AI, which I'm sure the vast majority of people here have, they'll know that AI needs a lot of relevant data to work with. And that relevant data probably, some of it's can be found in the CRM, but there's so much more a business has, which needs to be put into some system, which is where Data Cloud comes in. And Salesforce has been releasing a lot of or teasing a lot of features recently about Data Cloud being able to store unstructured data, which is where AI can really come into its element. So, Mo, would you mind giving us a bit of insights into what you're seeing and why Salesforce has matched up Data Cloud with AI?
Yeah, as you say, Ben, and as Ian's alluded to, I think Salesforce recognizes that they have to coexist with other data platforms in an enterprise. Yeah, this concept of one single master record doesn't really exist in enterprise. Your records are all over the place, and it's dawned on them that Data Cloud needs to have the ability to be able to communicate with those external systems and external data lakes. Whether that be Snowflake, Databricks, wherever. And the clever thing they've done is they recognized that and built the connectors, and also the zero copy feature that they've introduced, which makes it so easy, right? You don't have to actually lift and shift the data. You can just call on the data and do what you need to do. So I think there's a compelling story there that Salesforce has knitted together. And of course, this is all historical as well, because they started off with Genie, 2 years ago, and prior to that CDP. So the whole thing's evolved from being very much a marketing cloud-centric database to we're going to put this in every cloud and make every cloud better. And on top of that, we're going to then also build in the Einstein Copilot, which allows users to be able to interrogate that data using natural language, which is the ultimate, I guess, the result that enterprises want to get to. So I think, again, we're finding that clients are starting to understand Data Cloud better. They're still within the very early stages of trying to figure out where the use cases are, where they're going to get the value from. So a lot of the clients we speak to are in the embryonic stages of just doing some pilots and POCs and just helping the organization to understand where that value will come from. So I've not seen personally any major large investments in Data Cloud today, but that will happen over the next 12 to 18 months. A lot of them are in the very early stages. And as an organization, we've had to adapt as well, because we're no longer just having conversations around CRM data. When we go into the front of a client, we're also bringing the capabilities that we have across our data and analytics practice, because without having a good understanding of the underlying data and the data structure and the data architecture around the enterprise, you're not going to get the value out of Data Cloud. So we're also starting to see there's a lot more cross-pollination between the practices as well. So the Salesforce practice is working very closely with the analytics practice, for example, and the customer experience practice. Okay, how do you render this valuable data to the end user? So again, we're seeing a lot of blurred lines and a lot of cross-pollination going on. So again, people coming into the ecosystem, I think you have to have an appreciation that if you continue to work in a siloed way around just CRM, that's not really going to add value to the organization. As an individual, you need to have broad knowledge across other technologies as well. So I'm not saying that you need to be an expert on data lakes, but have some broad knowledge around what data lakes and what they do and how enterprises are using them. So we're starting to see our experienced consultants now branching out and getting certifications in areas outside of Salesforce to actually broaden their knowledge and broaden their skill set. So a lot of change, Ben, and Data Cloud. No day goes past without having a conversation several times during the day around Data Cloud or AI in our organization. So it's there, it's happening. Clients are curious and asking about it. We had the London World Tour not long ago, and on our booth, conversations were around Data Cloud, and the question is, they're scratching their head on, how do I implement this? Where are the use cases? And that's where we're trying to come in and add the value and help our clients to unlock the value in terms of where that will be valuable for them. So yeah.
Great, thank you very much, Mo. So Ian, I think you kind of alluded to a minute ago that you have implemented it with Data Cloud recently inside of Elements. Maybe just give us an overview about that. What kind of what kind of initial use cases were you thinking of when you implemented it?
Well, I think the first thing is that you talked about getting more data out of different systems. I think actually it's about using those different systems to actually improve the data you've got. So we've got an end user who's logged into, who goes to our website, who uses Elements, who's got training certifications on our academy, who's attended a webinar. So we've got data in 4 or 5 different systems. We want to draw that all together so we can actually so if someone has got a certification, been on a training course, been to a webinar, and then we can see that they're not using that functionality in our application, then clearly there's there's an interrupt there. So that's the point to send them an email and go, how can we help you? Rather than just spamming people with, have you heard about all these new features? So it's enabling us to get a far clearer picture about an individual and what they need, which means that our marketing could be a lot more targeted. So that's a fairly simple use case, but it still involves 4 or 5 different systems being drawn together. So the implementation was, people go, oh, Data Cloud's hard. It isn't hard, but it requires a very different set of skills. So you need, I think someone said it's 80% planning, 20% configuration. So all the Data Cloud trailhead badges, the Data Cloud certification, all the world tour, the tours that people go on, those are all aimed at that 20%, which is how you configure Data Cloud. Okay, the 80% of the stuff that Mo was talking about, which is, okay, we need to do design, we need some business analysis, we need strong data analysis and data modeling skills, we need to architect this correctly, we need to think about security. And those are all relatively senior, classic enterprise level implementation skills. If you've got those, then once you've designed what you want to go and build, implementing is relatively straightforward. And I say relatively straightforward, but it's clicks and code. So if you're giving someone a spec I think this is where that entry-level data cloud person comes in, where they've then been given a specification by the architect and the design team that can then get implemented. And that's really where we saw the implementation. Two very different skill sets. And yeah, it was less expensive than we expected. We architected it with thinking about the consumption-based pricing. We thought about what data we really needed to pull in, and we were actually surprised that we actually used far fewer credits than we expected. So it is achievable. We're not a huge company, and we're getting value from it. And it's not as hard as you think, but you need the right skills in place. And it's these senior level skills which I think are lacking in the ecosystem. I'll leave you with one last thought. Data Cloud will punish you if you do not do all the planning correctly. Okay, you can't use the approach that people have used typically in Salesforce, which is, oh, I'll have a go, I'll make some changes, I'll see what happens, let's click on that, I wonder what happened. If you do that, you'll have to start again. You'll have to unpick everything you've done, burning up all those credits. This really is about proper design up front, planning up front, architecture up front before you start building.
Yeah, very cool. And it is all, as you said, it's on the core platform, isn't it? So it's a very familiar UI. As you said, it's clicks, not code. So, you know, people on this call maybe who have got experience with core, you know, could possibly learn those skills. But as you said, it's more of the architecture, the softer skills, perhaps requirements gathering, those types of things that are going to need probably more of a focus before you begin.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually, think of it as a data-driven project. I think Mo talked about that. Unless you understand the data structures of the systems that you're now trying to connect to, and understand the data volumes, and understand building an interrelationship diagram of the core system, of the source system, you've no idea what the volumes are going to be. Therefore, you've no idea what it's going to cost. So that it's not just soft skills. It's data modeling, it's data analysis type skills that you need in that design and architecture stage. But yes, when you start to go to how do I build this? How do I build a DSO, a DLO, a DMO? Yeah, they're things that you'd understand. They're custom objects, they're custom fields. By the way, make sure you document, because the next time you come back to it, because you're going to have to reuse this for the next use case. Again, all this idea of, oh, we didn't bother documenting and we haven't actually done a design, that will nail you. You'll get no value from your implementation, and you certainly won't be able to maintain it. So a lot of the disciplines we've been talking about for the last X years, those are all going to become really important for Data Cloud.
Yeah, great, thank you. And Mo, you kind of talked about it a bit earlier. You know, there's more cross-departmental collaboration with Data Cloud now. But how are Cognizant positioning themselves in this kind of new world? You know, are things going to kind of change for you in the future because of Data Cloud coming into the mix?
Yeah, definitely. I'm seeing that today, actually, because we are now, you know, positioning Data Cloud with, for example, AWS and bringing AWS data in, for example. With Salesforce now selling on AWS, that's another angle to the whole thing as well. Because if you got Data Cloud as a consumption-based product, and you also have AWS and you host it on AWS, then of course you're also burning AWS credits. So there's a lot of all of this sort of multi-vendor landscape being created now, where there's cross collaboration going on. And as I say, you know, we're starting to see announcements from Salesforce around connectors with Snowflake, for example, and Databricks. So inevitably, you know, they're working very closely with those partners to create those connectors and being able to get the data coming through. So I think we're going to see more of that sort of data ecosystem coming together, and all those platforms driving, you know, the power of the data from each of those platforms to the end user. And you know, they all accept that they have to work together. You cannot work in isolation. You've got to work with those other vendors and those other practices to be able to actually build the right data model and get the right results you're looking for. So collaboration is a key skill. It's, you know, as I say, anybody new coming in, and even the most experienced consultants we have, they're now having to work with a lot more different teams than they used to, particularly with the data cloud implementation.
But just think about how that project runs. So I'm now running my Data Cloud project. And I say to our marketing team, by the way, I want you to provide this marketing data. And they go, well, we haven't kind of got it in that format. So I said, well, in that case, can you make some changes to HubSpot? They're like, well, actually, we got our own priorities. And then you go back to our academy team, and they've got their training application. And we're going, well, actually, we'd love to get the data out of that. And they go, well, actually, we don't export in that format. Well, could you do some changes? Well, no, we've got our own priorities here. So actually, it needs to bubble up to someone at a higher level who can actually take an overall enterprise view of this, saying, okay, well, we're going to change the priorities of that team and that team because actually it's for the greater good, because actually now we can do something better inside Salesforce and marketing can gain. So it's not just the technical side, but actually from the project side, it's cross collaborative, and the sponsor needs often to be higher than necessarily just the Salesforce platform owner. So again, very different world we're moving into.
Yeah, it's also pulling in a lot of the other departments previously you wouldn't consider. So, in terms of things like the data ethics, for example, the sharing of data. Now, particularly a lot of clients are rightly concerned about exposing customer data out into LLMs, for example, or large language models. And of course, Salesforce has that built-in security where that data doesn't get out to the external models. But then, when you start to drive the data coming out of those large language models, there's all the other things around bias and hallucinations and all of those terminologies that some of you may be familiar with. And how do you manage that? How do you actually fine-tune those models? So once the project's implemented, it's not over, because you're constantly fine-tuning the models and you're fine-tuning the data. And I think the expectation from some clients is, well, if I go live on day one, everything's going to be nice and rosy. It won't be, because you're going to have to constantly fine-tune that data. So again, a lot of consultants and new entrants into the ecosystem need to appreciate that this is a journey that clients are on, and it's a continuous journey. Once you've gone live, it doesn't stop, because there's new data sets coming on board. You're having to govern that data, monitor that data, and make sure that the data that's being presented out to your end user is up to scratch, and it doesn't have that bias and those hallucinations, etc. So as you say, and I think there's the project element, but there's also how do you support this thing going forward, and that's a whole different ball game as well, and a different story.
Yeah, and Mo, I kind of go into that point from like the Cognizant or the consulting project side. How would you think like entry-level candidates coming in would differ from a skill set that would be, let's call it like reasonable and attractive, versus say senior architects, right, who are really more comfortable with those types of roles in an implementation? I'm wondering how you think about how people coming in could better position themselves on the consulting project side, and even thinking, you mentioned the 12 to 18 months timeline, which I think is really interesting, and is a big reason why we wanted to have this conversation for people coming in, is trying to build towards that a little bit, right?
Yeah, and I think as an organization, new entrants coming in, they need to sort of demonstrate some of the skills we've talked about on this webinar. It's the ability to be able to collaborate, the ability to be able to demonstrate that you can take a wider perspective and a wider view across problems. So using examples potentially from your previous jobs or whatever it may be, and trying to overlay that to say, actually, yes, for a role in Salesforce, and particularly data cloud is going to be, within every single cloud. So, the ability to be able to think that way is going to be pretty crucial. So my advice to new entrants coming into the ecosystem would be to listen to some of the skills that Ian and I and everyone's talked about on this call, and think about how you can translate those into some of the experiences you've previously had, and bring those to life during the interview, during the hiring process. And I think that will be the differentiator in terms of whether you get through or not. So for me, that's the advice I would give. And certainly this is not just constrained to the people that are entering the ecosystem. This also applies very much to experienced hires as well, because those architects, those technical architects that are thinking quite narrow today, they're going to have to change, otherwise they're going to be left behind.
Let me just, I really want to set some expectations here. if you're coming into a data cloud project and you're new to your entry-level Salesforce, you actually haven't got very many IT skills. You need to be clear. You're going to end up doing some of that configuration. So you need to make sure you're on those bootcamp. You're doing that. You're not going to be able to do a few trailhead badges or even do the data cloud consultant course and instantly have those enterprise implementation skills, those architecture skills. You're going to have to grow into those, and that's a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 year journey in terms of your experience. So the point is, getting in now means that you will be growing as data cloud is growing and as the demand grows. But to expect to come into the ecosystem new and go, great, I want to be involved in a data cloud project and I want to do architecture, you just won't have those skills because you won't have had a chance to grow those. The good news is that data cloud projects will be team projects, which means that there won't be any solo data cloud admins. That you will be able to join a project team as a junior member of that project team and then grow and learn from the rest of the team, which I think is something which, I mean, in my Accenture career, that's why we grew so quickly. We had great mentors, we were around great people. I'm sure the same is true for Cognizant. But the idea of being a solo admin somewhere where you don't have any of those core enterprise skills around you is going to be really hard. The good news for data cloud is those projects are going to be team projects, collaborative, and you want to make sure you've got the right configuration skills, you've got your data cloud certs, so you can get inserted into those projects. And then if you've got the aspirations, you can then start growing through to be the architecture roles, the design roles, the analysis roles. But you shouldn't be expecting to walk in day one unless you've got those skills from another ecosystem like SAP or Oracle or custom applications.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Ian. You know, we've been talking a lot about saturation and things like that, but these skills, as you kind of pointed out, and Mo and Jeff as well, are kind of, to an extent, totally new. And of course, some people in the ecosystem will have them if they've been exposed to these types of projects. They've worked with data lakes, you know, some architects will, for example. But I think the vast majority of people won't. So there's a totally new skills that people can start exploring. And sure, you're not going to be an expert, you know, on day one, but you know, this stuff can be worked towards. And I think that's what we're going to segue to now, is talk a bit about Jeff and their latest training course. So. Jeff, give us a bit of a summary about what Clipped have been working on at the moment.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, for sure. I mean, Mo and Ian hit on a bunch of these touch points that we're also hearing directly from other partners, from Salesforce and some of their needs. And I think one of the interesting things that Mo said is, one, the 12 to 18 months, which I really want to pin, is this is going to grow, right? Like this, we are getting ahead of potential movement where there will be more jobs in the future. So thinking towards the future can help you enable some of these entry-level positions. Just like when we talked about in 2021-22, when an admin cert, no experience, could get you a job, we're going to see growth in this potential environment. The other thing he alluded to is the cross-pollination of data and analytics, right? Data modeling, this new skill set outside of some of the core stuff that we do, which is core consulting, 21st century skills, collaboration. That mindset and building in those skills is really critical, right? Thinking just outside of the tools, thinking about how do we pull all those together, building in some of those skill sets. So we're super excited that we've been able to partner with, or bring both of our partners, Salesforce and IBM, through their IBM Skills Build initiatives, together in a 4-month career catalyst program on data and AI and CRM. It's $295 for a 4-month program. You get a free Salesforce voucher if you get up into it. We'll also give you access to some of our career development programs. You get access to coaches like Mo and some of our others like Vanessa Grant, who will be helping everybody alongside this. And we really have catered and crafted this experience to thinking towards that future, right? Those 12 to 18 months, building in those skill sets that we think are high demand right now. And we're hearing from employers, we're really catered towards breaking into entry-level careers. So we're super excited to be able to do this. It's the first time we've done a program like this, which is really crafted and curated with multiple types of experiences. We'll be doing stuff on Einstein, we'll be doing stuff on Data Cloud, we'll be doing data and analytics stuff, we'll be doing data modeling stuff. And it's for people who are trying to break into careers, but as Mo mentioned, also for some of those early career professionals who are maybe 0 to 2 years of experience, who really want to make sure that they're future-proofing their careers and building these skill sets in the ecosystem, which are needed and will be needed even more as this platform continues to grow. This is a big bet by Salesforce, right? Ben, Ian, Mo, we've talked about this a lot, right? Data Cloud is a big bet, and they will need talent to be able to grow that product. And that's what we're trying to do. Is we're trying to build the ecosystem in some of these data and analytics tangent roles as well through a program like this to really build in new talent into the ecosystem.
Great. Thanks so much, Jeff. And yeah, I think something else to mention as well is I think last time they released the data, if it's up to date, Data Cloud was at about 400 million annual recurring revenue, growing at 90% year on year, and core Salesforce is growing at like 8%, 9%, something like that. So, a few years' time, this could be absolutely gigantic. I know my colleague is going to put a link to the training course in the comments. She has done at the start of the session as well. But how can people get started after they click through that link?
Yeah, so once you get started, you'll go through the sign-up process. The program will start on September 23rd. So before that, we'll have some pre-work. We'll be getting everybody into a new community within this, which is combined with, again, our IBM Skills Build and some of our Salesforce people. It will be limited in availability for the 4-month program. So we've been able to put a promo code there for this, for the Salesforce Ben audience, SFBen24. And once you get started, September 23rd, you'll go through a variety of experiences fit towards your time zone and also where you're kind of at in your career. If you're new to Click, Mo, as a coach, can kind of attest to this. We really are able to cater to a bunch of different people in different career trajectories and pair you up with other people to progress in your career. So once you click on the link, you can go through the process. September 23rd is when the kickoff starts. And 4 months later, you're going to have a ton of new skills, some hands-on experience that you can put in a portfolio and ready for kind of the future of Salesforce, we believe.
Cool. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Jeff. Any final words of wisdom from anyone before we sign off?
I think Data Cloud is something that Salesforce has to do. Therefore, this is not the product's launched, it's disappeared. There's the level of commitment you're seeing here. So it's very early days, but actually now is the time to get started and get involved, which means that a year from now, 2 years from now, you will be one of the leaders in this. So get started now would be my advice. Get on the train. It's leaving the station.
Absolutely, yeah. And I speak to Salesforce on a daily basis from an alliances perspective, and there is a considerable amount of focus investment from the senior leadership there on Data Cloud. They are fully invested. You mentioned, Ben, in terms of the recurring revenue, I think they want to close this year at $1 billion recurring revenue. So it's the fastest growing product I think they've ever launched, if I'm right. Huge amount of investment that they're making there with partners as well in terms of getting clients up and running with this with this product. They're offering free credits. They're offering to switch it on. They're offering investments to stand up proof of concepts. We're going to need people to do this, right, in the next even probably 6 months, I would say, right? The clients are going to be ready to do something with it. So yeah, it's a great place to start. Definitely one for the future. And I think there's going to be a shortage in the market in the next 6 months. So get on the train.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, just kind of aligning to that, it really is for people who are trying to break into careers or really are trying to like future-proof their careers, it is thinking to the future, as we've been talking about, right? Like the same thing that was coming up where we know this is coming because it's a big bet from the companies and we're seeing it, right? It's the big reason why we created this program. We really wanted to prepare people who are trying to break into careers. We know it's hard. Me and Ben, we talk about this all the time with the current market. This is a good wave. Entry-level careers is hard to break in for all industries, and finding industries that are high demand that really fit some of your skill sets, like what we potentially see here, is a great boon to try to break into a new career in tech.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, guys. I interviewed someone the other day who interviewed Parker Harris internally at Salesforce, and he asked him, like, where should we focus in the next few years? And he was like, Data Cloud, Data Cloud, Data Cloud. And everyone loves Parker Harris, so we should listen to him. But thank you so much for everyone for joining today. It's been a pleasure to host you all here. Thank you to Ian, Mo, and Jeff, our guests for today. And you can find the link to the training program in the comments. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.
Everybody.